I was just fixing the collar on his shirt. That's it. Just one of those tiny, quiet things I do for him. Like pouring his coffee exactly how he likes it, or folding his suits the way his mother must have taught him. He didn't even ask. He never does. But he stood there in front of the mirror like always, arms relaxed at his sides, while I reached up and straightened the dark gray silk against his neck. His cologne smelled expensive and cold, like leather and something sharper underneath. "Your driver has a gun," I whispered. He froze. I felt his breath catch, and for a split second, I thought he might not have heard me right. Maybe I was going crazy. Maybe I was imagining the flash of metal I saw tucked in the side of the driver's coat. But then his eyes met mine in the mirror, and something shifted in his face. Subtle, dangerous. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at me. Long and hard. And I could feel his stare peeling back all the layers I had carefully kept hidden since the day I started working in this house. "You sure?" he asked, voice low. I nodded. I saw it when he stepped out of the car, right side, under his jacket. He kept touching it, like he was checking if it was still there. He turned around slowly, like a man who couldn't afford to rush anything. Not even fear, not even death. He stared at me, like I was something he hadn't fully figured out yet, like maybe I was a threat too, or maybe a puzzle piece that just didn't belong here. "You've been working here for 3 months, he said quietly, adjusting his cuffs, still calm. "And you've never spoken out of turn. Never told me anything that wasn't routine." "Because I never had to," I said. My hands were trembling. I pressed them down on the front of my apron to stop the shaking. God, what was I even doing? Warning a mafia boss about a possible hit. This wasn't part of my job. I was supposed to clean rooms, make beds, and stay invisible. That's what they told me during training. Don't get involved. Don't speak unless spoken to. But here I was. And the thing was, I didn't even know why I warned him. He wasn't kind. He wasn't cruel either. He was cold, sharp, unreadable. The kind of man who made the air feel thin when he walked into a room. You couldn't guess his mood or his next move. Maybe that's why I warned him. Because when I saw the driver's hand brushing against that hidden gun, I felt something twist in my stomach. A bad feeling. He walked over to the window and moved the curtain an inch, just enough to peek through. Then he stepped back, expression unreadable. "You know who that driver is?" he asked. I hesitated, then shook my head. "He's been with me 7 years, he said. Saved my life once." I looked at him. Heart sinking. "Then why the gun?" He gave a slow exhale, like he didn't want to believe it either. "That's what I'm about to find out." Then he turned toward the hallway, stopped at the doorway, and looked back at me. "You got a name?" I blinked. "Anna." "Anna," he said, repeating it like he was trying it out for the first time. "You're either very smart or very stupid." And then he walked out, leaving me alone with 1,000 thoughts crashing through my head. What if I was wrong? What if I just threw myself in the middle of something I couldn't handle? But more than anything, I kept thinking about the way he looked at me in that mirror. Like I'd broken some kind of rule just by speaking. Like I'd stepped into a game I wasn't meant to play. And somehow, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I didn't move for a long time after he left. I just stood there, in the middle of his room, staring at the spot where he'd been. My hands clenched so tight, they started to ache. My heart was thudding hard in my chest, like it knew something I didn't. Like it was trying to warn me. I wasn't supposed to get involved. That rule kept echoing in my head like a siren. Don't get involved. Don't speak. Don't think. Just clean, just leave. But I had broken it. I had crossed the invisible line that separates people like me from people like him, from people who kill, order hits, and make decisions that get others buried in the ground. I didn't know what I expected to happen. Maybe he'd confront the driver quietly. Maybe he'd cancel the trip. Maybe nothing. But 10 minutes later, I heard the front door open again, and then gunshots. 3 of them. Loud, sharp, final. I froze. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even scream. My feet moved before my brain caught up, dragging me toward the stairway. I pressed myself against the wall, peeking down just enough to see. The driver was on the floor by the entrance. Blood was soaking into the white marble tiles. One of the other men, Marco, I think, the one with the scar on his neck, was standing nearby, holding the gun. Mr. Romano was standing calmly in front of the body, like he was just watching someone clean up a spill. He didn't look shocked or shaken. He looked disappointed. And then he said something that chilled me to the bone. Bury him, somewhere quiet. Burn the car. Find out who paid him. Just like that. I backed away from the stairs. My breath caught in my throat. I shouldn't have seen that. I shouldn't have been anywhere near this part of the house. My job was the 3rd floor, the bedrooms. Never the entrance, never the offices, never where the blood ends up. I turned ready to run back to the laundry room and pretend like none of this ever happened, but I ran straight into him. He was already there, right behind me, looking at me with those eyes, sharp, unreadable, cold as ice. For someone so quiet, he moved like a ghost. You never heard his footsteps, you just felt him. "How much did you see?" he asked, his voice like steel wrapped in velvet. I swallowed hard. "Everything." He nodded once. "And are you going to run to the police?" "No." I said it too fast, too desperate. He noticed. "You're scared," he said, not asking, just observing. I didn't mean to see anything. I stopped, realizing how useless the explanation sounded. He stepped closer. "Why did you warn me?" I shook my head, but the truth was clawing its way out. "I don't know. Something felt wrong. And I didn't want you to die." He raised an eyebrow slightly. "You didn't want me to die?" God, hearing it out loud, made it sound even more ridiculous. But it was true. I didn't know why. Maybe it was the way he carried himself. Maybe because he wasn't cruel to me like some of the others. Or maybe because he was the only one who looked at me like I wasn't just furniture. "You saved my life, Anna." The way he said my name this time, it sounded different. He wasn't trying it out. He was claiming it, and that scared me more than the gunshots. "I don't want anything from you," I said quickly. "I just want to stay out of this." He gave a soft laugh, dry and humorless. "It's too late for that." And then he reached out and touched my cheek, gently, like he was checking if I was real. "You did something none of my men could do today," he said. "And that means I owe you." I didn't like the sound of that. He looked me over like he was calculating something, measuring. "From now on, you work directly under me. You'll clean my room, my office, that's it. No one else's. You don't leave this floor unless I say so." I stared at him, stunned. It's not a request," he cut in, soft but firm. "You're part of this now, like it or not." And with that, he walked away, leaving me standing in the hallway, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. The blood was still on the floor downstairs. And now I knew. I wasn't just a maid anymore. Something had changed, something big. The next morning felt like something out of a dream, or maybe a nightmare. I couldn't decide which. I woke up in the small room the maid slept in, still dressed in yesterday's uniform. I'd barely slept. My mind kept replaying the gunshots, the blood, The way Mr. Romano looked at me like I was suddenly someone worth noticing. And then, that final sentence he left me with. You're part of this now. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this. I just wanted a job, a place to sleep, a way to send money back home so my sister wouldn't end up like me, scrubbing floors in a house full of dangerous men. But somehow, here I was. When I came downstairs, everything was clean. No blood, no sign that anyone had died in the hallway last night. The marble was spotless, polished to a shine. The rugs had been changed. Even the scent in the air was different, stronger, masking the metallic trace of death. The only thing that hadn't changed was the silence. The other maids barely looked at me, like they knew something had shifted and didn't want to get caught in the crossfire. I couldn't blame them. I wouldn't want to look at me either. I kept my head down and headed to Mr. Romano's floor like he told me. I'd never been allowed up there before, not without supervision. Now I had free access. Or maybe I was just the new prisoner with better privileges. His office door was open when I reached it. He was already inside, sitting behind that massive black desk of his, reading something on a tablet. He didn't look up when I stepped in. Close the door. I did, slowly. My fingers trembled a little on the handle. The room was quiet, except for the faint ticking of a wall clock, and the sound of him tapping on the screen. He finally looked up. His eyes met mine, and again that feeling hit me, like I was being studied, like he was reading me faster than I could even form a thought. Come here. I walked over to the desk. He slid a small envelope across the surface. It was thick, heavy. I hesitated before picking it up. That's 5,000, he said, for saving my life. I froze. I didn't do it for money. I know, he said. That's why I'm giving it to you. I didn't move. The envelope just sat there, between us, like a bomb waiting to go off. Take it, he said again, softer this time, or I'll be offended. I picked it up slowly and tucked it into my apron. My heart was still pounding. I didn't want his money. I didn't want to owe him anything. But I also didn't want to insult a man who had 3 guns in this room alone. One on him, one in the drawer, and one on the wall behind his chair. I noticed them all the second I walked in. You said I work for you now, I said, voice barely above a whisper. What does that mean? It means I want you where I can see you, he replied. You've proven you're observant, smart, maybe even loyal. I'm not loyal to you. He smiled. Not yet. That terrified me more than anything else he could have said. He stood and walked over to the bar at the far end of the room, poured himself a glass of something dark. Whiskey, maybe. He didn't offer me any. You know, Anna, he said slowly, people don't last long in this house without picking a side. One day, someone's going to ask you a question, and you'll have to decide. Tell the truth, and you might die. Lie, and you might live, but you'll owe someone. He turned around, sipping his drink, watching me. You've already chosen once. Don't think I didn't notice. I swallowed hard. What side did I choose? He stepped closer, set the glass down, and leaned in just enough that I could smell the liquor on his breath. Mine. And that was when I realized the truth. I wasn't just some maid who got caught up in something by accident. I was now his, whether I liked it or not. After that morning, things started changing fast. Too fast. No one said it out loud, but the way the other staff looked at me shifted. Some wouldn't meet my eyes at all, and the ones who did gave me that sideways glance, half fear, half curiosity. Like I was walking around with blood on my hands, like I was one of them now. And maybe I was. Mr. Romano didn't call for me the next day, but I was expected to be there. I spent hours in his office dusting shelves that didn't need dusting, organizing files that already looked perfect. I wasn't stupid. I knew I was being watched. Marco, the guy with the scar, hovered near the door sometimes, pretending to be on his phone. And two others rotated in and out of the hallway. Guards, eyes, traps. But it was Mr. Romano himself who unnerved me the most. He didn't talk much. When he did, it was always short. Bring the file. Leave that. Or go home. And yet I felt like I was in a constant conversation with him. Not with words, but with silence. With the way he'd glance at me from behind that desk, like I was some new kind of threat. Or worse, a puzzle he was enjoying putting together. I tried not to think about that night too much. But it haunted me. The blood, the body, the calm in his voice as he ordered someone's life to disappear. And I had a front row seat to all of it. On the fourth day, he finally spoke more than 3 words. "You're quiet," he said, not looking up from his laptop. "I thought you liked that in your staff." "I like smart more than quiet," he replied, "but silence can be useful too, especially when people around me forget who put them where they are." I kept wiping the edge of the shelf, even though it was already clean. "I don't want to be in the middle of whatever this is." "Too late for that," he said casually. I turned to face him. "You think giving me a few $1,000s and keeping me on this floor means I'm yours?" He looked up now, his expression unreadable. "No, but saving my life made you mine. Whether you understand that yet or not. That's not how people work." He tilted his head slightly, amused. "People like you, maybe. But people like me, we don't believe in coincidence. You saw the gun, you warned me. Then you stood on the stairs and watched what happened. And you didn't run. That says something." I wanted to argue, to say that I was scared stiff, that I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move, that I didn't belong in any of this. But he was right about one thing. I didn't run. And I still didn't know why. Maybe it was survival. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something else. And he stood and walked over to the window, staring out at the long driveway that led to the front gates. "There are rules in this world, Anna. Men like me, we don't get to trust easily. But when we do, it's because someone proved they can see things others don't. You did that." I wasn't trying to prove anything. He turned to me, and for once, his voice softened, just a little. "You didn't have to." There was a pause. He watched me like he was trying to figure out just how far he could pull me in. Then he said, "I want you to come with me tonight." My heart skipped. "Come with you where?" "Dinner, a meeting. Call it whatever you want." I stared at him. "I'm not some trophy." He smiled faintly. "No, you're something far more dangerous. You're a question no one else knows the answer to yet. And I like keeping you close. I don't trust you. I wouldn't respect you if you did." That shut me up. "Wear something simple," he added. "Black. And no heels. We might need to move quickly." "What kind of dinner needs running shoes?" He didn't answer, just walked out of the room, leaving the question and everything else hanging in the air like a loaded gun. And once again, I was left standing in silence, wondering if this was still just about a warning, or if I'd just taken another step into a world I couldn't walk out of. I stood in front of the mirror that night for what felt like an hour. The black dress I found in the wardrobe upstairs hugged my body a little too well. It wasn't mine. Nothing up there was. Mr. Romano must have had someone leave it for me. My size, no tags, no note. Just like that, my uniform was gone. And now I was something else. I wore flats, like he said. My hair tied back tight. Makeup light. I looked like someone I didn't know. Someone trying to pretend they weren't terrified. When I came downstairs, the front of the mansion looked different. The usual guards were still there, but they stood straighter, their eyes sharper. Everyone seemed more alert. And in the center of it all stood him, dressed in a dark, tailored suit, phone in hand, jaw tight. He looked up when he saw me. His gaze moved from my shoes to my face in one slow sweep. No smile, no words, just a nod. We walked outside together. A sleek black car was waiting at the bottom of the stairs, not the usual one. This one had no driver. "You're driving?" I asked, surprised. "I don't trust anyone else tonight," he said, opening the passenger door for me. I hesitated before sliding in. The car smelled like leather and danger. The city lights blurred past us as we drove. He didn't say anything for a while, just one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the center console. But his eyes were everywhere. Mirrors, rear view, side streets, watching, measuring. Finally, I couldn't take the silence. "Where are we going?" "Restaurant. Neutral ground. I'm meeting someone who thinks I don't know he's been selling my name to people who want me dead." I blinked. "That sounds casual." He chuckled softly. "Casual is safer. Tension makes people nervous. Nervous people shoot faster." I looked over at him, trying to figure out what the hell I was doing here. "Why am I with you?" He didn't answer right away. Then finally, "Because the person I'm meeting knows everyone I trust. You're the only one he's never seen. That gives me an edge. So I'm bait." "No," he said, glancing at me. "You're a surprise." The car pulled up in front of a high-end Italian place downtown. Not flashy, not crowded, controlled. He stepped out first, then came around to my door like some twisted gentleman. His hand was warm when he helped me out, but there was nothing soft about it. Inside, the hostess didn't ask for a name. She just nodded once and led us to a private booth in the back, behind a curtain. I felt like I was in a movie, the kind that ends badly. Mr. Romano sat across from me. His eyes never stopped moving. He didn't even touch the menu. A minute later, the man we were here to meet arrived. He was older, heavier, with a fake smile and slicked back hair. He sat down across from Mr. Romano like they were old friends. But I could feel it in the air. They weren't friends. They were wolves circling each other, both trying to smell blood. "Who's the girl?" the man asked, eyeing me. Romano didn't miss a beat. "My insurance." That shut him up. They talked business, deals, territories, all in careful coded language. But I could tell Mr. Romano was pushing, just a little. Testing him, watching for cracks. Halfway through, the man slipped. Just a word, a name he wasn't supposed to know. Romano's jaw tightened. I felt it too. He leaned back slowly, folding his hands. Funny, only 4 people knew about that meeting. 2 are dead, one's me. The man froze. I felt the shift, the danger. Romano turned to me. "Anna, do me a favor." My throat tightened. "What?" "Check the coat behind him, left pocket." I blinked. "Now?" "Yes. Now." The man tried to protest, but I was already up. My hands were shaking as I reached into the coat. And there it was, a phone, a second one, hidden, still unlocked. I handed it to Romano. He scrolled once, twice. Then he stood, calm, too calm. "You sold me out," he said flatly. The man looked like he wanted to explain, apologize, beg. But Romano didn't give him the chance. He didn't raise his voice, didn't move fast. He just nodded once toward the door. And Marco walked in, from nowhere. Gun in his coat, eyes like stone. Romano turned to me. "Anna, go wait in the car." I didn't move. He looked me dead in the eyes, now, and in that moment, I understood something terrifying. He didn't want me to see this part, which meant whatever was about to happen would haunt him too. The second I stepped out of that restaurant, the night air hit me like a slap, cold, thick with tension, and far too quiet for a street that usually buzzed. I crossed the sidewalk and slipped into the car, heart pounding in my ears. I kept my eyes on the door, waiting. 10 minutes passed. 15. Still nothing. Every minute that ticked by made me feel sicker. I didn't know what was happening behind that curtain, but I knew it wasn't just a conversation. I wasn't naive anymore. I knew what men like Mr. Romano did when they were betrayed. And that man? The one with the slick hair and fake charm? He'd betrayed him. And I had been there to watch him fall right into the trap. I stared at my own hands, still shaking from when I pulled the phone from that coat. What if I hadn't found it? What if I dropped it, hesitated, ruined something? But I hadn't. I did exactly what he asked. So why did I feel like throwing up? Finally, the restaurant door opened. Mr. Romano stepped out, adjusting his cuffs like he'd just finished dinner and nothing more. Marco followed a few steps behind, stone-faced. No one else came out. No sign of the older man. No surprise. Romano opened the driver's side, slid in, and didn't say a word. We sat in silence while he adjusted the mirrors. Then he reached into the center console, pulled out a small bottle of clear liquid, and poured some into his hands. Sanitizer. He rubbed it slowly, methodically, and that's when I knew, for sure, he'd done it himself. Is he dead? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Romano didn't look at me. He made his choice. And you made yours, I said softly. He glanced at me then, his eyes unreadable. He would have put a bullet in my back and sold my head to people twice as ruthless. I swallowed hard. So what happens now? Now? He started the car. Now we clean up the mess. We drove in silence for a while. I stared out the window, trying to quiet the storm in my chest. Anna. I turned my head. You did good tonight, he said. I trusted you with something important. You used me. I did, and you let me. That stung. Not because it wasn't true, but because it was. I'm not one of your people, I said. He smirked slightly. No, you're not. But that's exactly why you're valuable. I don't want to be valuable. I want to go back to being invisible. He pulled the car over to the side of the road, far from the city lights. Just trees and shadows out here. He turned toward me fully. You can walk away, Anna. Right now. I won't stop you. I'll even make sure you have enough money to disappear. A new identity, if you want it. I looked at him, searching his face for a lie. You'd really let me go? He nodded. If that's what you want. And for a moment, I considered it. The quiet life. A bus to nowhere. A room in a town where no one knew my name. But then I thought of the night I saw the gun. The feeling in my gut. The fact that no one else noticed, but I did. I saved his life, whether I meant to or not, and now I was in it. Even if I ran, I'd never stop looking over my shoulder. I don't want your money, I whispered, and I don't want to disappear. He watched me closely. Then what do you want? I didn't know, not exactly, but I knew what I didn't want. I want to matter, I said. Not just to you, not just because I was useful. I want to know what I'm walking into, no more secrets. He looked at me for a long time. Then slowly, he nodded. Okay, he said, then I'll show you everything. He put the car in gear again, and we drove back into the city. But something between us had shifted now. Not just power or loyalty, trust. And that was far more dangerous than anything I'd seen in that restaurant. The city looked different when we returned. Colder, quieter, like it knew what we had just done. Or maybe it was just me. By the time we pulled into the underground garage beneath the mansion, I was exhausted. Not physically, That would have been easier, but mentally, emotionally, I was drained. I didn't say anything as he parked the car. I just sat there, staring at the concrete wall, my thoughts spinning like a storm. "Come upstairs," he said after a moment, already stepping out. I hesitated, but followed. The elevator was silent, just the soft hum of machinery and the quiet click of the buttons. I watched the numbers change. Each floor felt heavier than the last. When we reached the top, he didn't lead me to his office. Instead, he opened a door I'd never seen before, on the other side of the hallway, opposite his usual rooms. Inside was something unexpected. It wasn't an office or a bedroom. It looked more like a command center. Dim lights, screens, maps, files stacked neatly on long tables. A digital wall full of shifting names, photos, bank transactions. He walked to the center of the room and turned slowly to face me. "This is what I've been building," he said. "Not just a business, not just a name, a network. Information, leverage, alliances, quiet power." I stepped in slowly, overwhelmed. It didn't look like a mafia operation. It looked like something the government might have buried beneath a mountain. "This is how I stay ahead," he continued. "I don't win because I'm ruthless. I win because I see things before they happen." I looked at the screen nearest to me. It showed surveillance footage, dozens of feeds from locations I didn't recognize. "You spy on people?" I asked. "I watch people," he corrected. "Some of them want me dead. Some of them owe me their lives. Either way, I need to know who's moving where and when." He walked over to one table and picked up a file. Thick, heavy. He handed it to me. I opened it slowly and froze. Inside were photos of me, not just recent ones, old ones, from before I ever stepped foot in this house, from my old apartment, my sister's school, even that crappy diner I used to work in. My hands started to shake. "You've been watching me," I whispered. "Yes," he said simply. "From the day you applied to work here." My chest tightened. "Why?" "Because someone like you doesn't walk into my world by accident." "I needed a job," I snapped. "That's it." He stepped closer. "Maybe, but I don't believe in coincidences. You don't belong in this world, Anna. And yet you didn't run. You saw more than you should have. You reacted like someone who's seen things before." My stomach turned. "You think I'm some kind of spy. I think you have a past you're not telling me," he said calmly. "And I want to know why." I dropped the file on the table. My hands were ice cold. "You want to know who I am? Fine. But it goes both ways." He raised an eyebrow. "Meaning? You don't get to pull me into your world, parade me around like a pawn, and then treat me like a threat. You want trust? Give it first." We stood there in silence, facing each other. Two people from different planets, trying to speak the same language. Then finally, he nodded. Just once. "I'll tell you something no one else knows," he said. "A secret I've never said out loud." I didn't breathe, just waited. He leaned in, his voice low. "The man I killed tonight, he wasn't working alone." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "There's a leak," he said. "Someone inside my circle. Someone close. Feeding my enemies bit by bit. And you think I can help find them?" He looked at me dead in the eyes. "I think you're the only one I can't afford to lose right now." That hit different. Not just because of what he said, but because I believed him. And that scared me more than anything else. The next morning didn't feel like morning at all. The sun rose like it always did, but everything in me stayed cold, heavy, like I'd crossed a line I couldn't come back from, and left a piece of myself on the other side. I couldn't sleep. Not after last night. The file with my pictures. His eyes when he said, I think you're the only one I can't afford to lose. And that room, that quiet war room, full of secrets, lies, and power. I didn't know what I had become. Maid, spy, something worse, something more. When I came out of my room, there were two men in the hallway. Neither of them spoke to me. They just nodded slightly and stepped aside. Romano had posted guards outside my door, and somehow that didn't make me feel safe. I found him in his office, already dressed, already working like the night before hadn't happened. He barely looked up as I entered. "You're late," he said, even though he hadn't asked me to come at all. "You had men outside my door," I replied. "Didn't realize I was on house arrest." He finally looked at me. "They're not there to keep you in. They're there to keep others out." I folded my arms. "You think your own people might come for me?" He didn't blink. "I know someone inside is leaking information. If they found out you know that too, trust me, I wouldn't risk it. And what if I don't want to be part of your little investigation?" He stood, walking around the desk until he was in front of me. "You are already part of it. The second you saw that gun. The second you warned me. And definitely the second you stepped into that restaurant." I hated that he was right. He walked over to a drawer, pulled out a phone, and tossed it to me. "That's yours now. Secure line. Only two people have the number. Me and Marco. Use it only if something feels off." I stared at it in my hand. Just holding it felt like a decision. What am I supposed to do with this? "Keep your eyes open," he said. "Keep listening. You're invisible to most of the staff. That's your power. Use it." I wanted to scream that I wasn't a spy, that I didn't ask for this. But deep down, I knew something had already shifted in me. I was in this now, and a part of me, some twisted part, wanted to see how deep it went. That afternoon, I started noticing things I hadn't before. Whispers in the hallway. People avoiding eye contact. Strange phone calls cut short when I walked into rooms. And then I saw her, Clara, another maid, quiet, sweet, always polite. But that day, she was in Mr. Romano's office when I passed by. And she wasn't cleaning. She was standing by his desk, flipping through a drawer, fast. Nervous. She didn't see me, but I saw her. When she slipped out, I waited a few seconds, then walked in. The drawer she'd been looking in held financial reports. Boring stuff, unless you knew what to look for. I snapped a quick photo and walked out like nothing happened. That night, I showed him. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at the photo, then at me. "You're sure it was her?" "I know what I saw." He nodded, then whispered, almost to himself, "She's been with me for years." I wanted to say something comforting. But what comfort is there when betrayal lives in your own house? He called Marco. Quiet orders were given. No yelling, no emotion, just cold, precise steps. Clara didn't come in the next morning, and no one asked why. Later that day, Mr. Romano poured 2 glasses of wine and handed me one. "To truth," he said. I took it. To surviving it. We drank. And in that moment, something between us became final. Not romantic. Not exactly. But something binding. Something sharp. A deal made in silence. He leaned closer and said, "You were never just a maid, were you?" I held his gaze. "You were never just a boss." He smiled, the first real one I'd seen, but there was still something dark in it. "You know," he said, "you're the only person in this house I can't decide whether I trust completely or fear a little." I smiled back, but this time it was real. "Good. Keep it that way." And just like that, the girl who once fixed his collar became his shadow, his secret, His insurance. No longer invisible, but just as dangerous.